Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel will fight with its fingernails if the US withholds offensive weapons ahead of Israel's Rafah offensive. Thousands of pro-Palestinian demonstrators took to the streets of Malmo against Israel's participation in the Eurovision Song Contest.
Amazing efforts. But I think
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he hopes to overcome disagreements with US President Joe Biden over Israel's invasion of Rafah, stressing Israel's need for precision weapons to avoid civilian casualties in Gaza.
I've known Joe Biden for many years.
Biden said that he would not supply offensive weapons that Israel could use to launch an all-out assault on Rafah, which Israel claims is the last major Hamas stronghold in Gaza. Senate Republicans are slamming President Biden's decision.
Coming for you again and again. Now, withholding weapons makes it very difficult, if not impossible, to get American hostages back and Israeli hostages back because you're incentivizing bad behavior. Withholding weapons makes Iran stronger, not weaker.
Pentagon spokesman Pat Ryder told reporters in a press briefing that as we assess the situation in Rafah, we made the decision to pause this one shipment.
Again, as I highlighted, a final determination has not been made on how to proceed with that shipment, but specifically,
an estimated 80,000 Palestinians are attempting to flee the overcrowded Rafah, thrown into panic and chaos by Israel's seizure of the nearby border crossing with Egypt and as the possibility of a full-scale invasion looms. Displaced and exhausted Palestinians and their families have packed up their tents and other belongings from Rafah and will move on. Not everyone in Malmo was welcoming the Eurovision Song Contest to town. Thousands of pro-Palestinian demonstrators took to the Swedish city to protest against Israel's participation in the pan-continental pop competition, waving Palestinian flags whilst police looked on. Israel's government warned its citizens of a tangible concern Israelis could be targeted for attack in Malmo during the contest. Not far away from where the pro-Palestinian demonstration marched in Malmo, roughly 100 people demonstrated to support the Israeli delegation in the competition.
Police detained over 30 people in the Dutch capital after breaking up a pro-Palestine demonstration. Protesters erected barricades and blocked several venues at the Amsterdam University. Footage from the scene shows some of them confronting the police and getting beaten with batons before being cleared off. Scuffles and arrests took place also at the University of Vienna. Students erected a tent camp inside the building. They were told to leave by the police, but some of them refused, resulting in 3 arrests. Another campsite sprung up at Cambridge University in the UK, with nearly 50 tents. Protesters, both students and staff, demanded the university stop investing in companies that supply arms to Israel. They also insisted Cambridge should not accept research funding from such firms. More protests occurred in Italy, Finland, Denmark, Spain and France.
Polish farmers have threatened to go on hunger strike over the EU Green Deal and Ukrainian imports, which they say harm their livelihoods. The group from the National Farmers Union Orca were invited to the Polish Parliament by deputies from the opposition PIS and Confederation parties. The protesters said they would not leave until they met Prime Minister Tusk. It coincides with a farmers' protest in Warsaw. A historic moment for North Macedonia as it elected its first female president, Gordana Siljanovska-Devkova, this week. She was backed by the right-wing VMRO-DPMNE party and won with nearly 65% of the vote. But the win could spell danger for the Balkan country's EU accession talks.
In terms of the European integration, the main thing, the constitutional changes, that remains to be seen how and whether VMRO will agree to adopt them. There is a consensus from what we hear from the Albanian parties overall that they will not go into a coalition with someone that will not vote for them. So we might expect here to see some shifts.
Despite being the Western Balkan region's early frontrunner to join the EU, North Macedonia has encountered bumps on its road to membership. A Greek veto over the country's name, followed by a block by Bulgaria over history and language claims, halted negotiations for decades. As European Union institutions mark the bloc's embryonic founding with Europe Day, they are also preparing themselves for the 2024 EU elections, which are less than 4 weeks away. The EU's achievements were celebrated in member state capitals 74 years after French Foreign Minister Robert Schuman's historic speech that led to the political and economic union's founding. Citizens were invited to visit EU institutions to celebrate, with European parliaments in Brussels, Strasbourg and Luxembourg opening their doors to the public. Outside of Brussels' European Parliament, 18-year-old German Carlo Walter says all young people should vote.
Mir ist es wichtig, dass ich wählen kann, weil wir sind ja, also die jungen Leute, ich und meine Generation sind ja immerhin die Zukunft Europas. Und dann zählt unsere Meinung ja für das, was in der Zukunft passieren soll.
The election could be one of the most consequential in history, shaped by the war in Ukraine, climate emergencies and fundamental questions of the bloc itself. Inside European Parliament, Italian MEP Nicola Procaccini says the current composition of the European Parliament swings too far left, and the upcoming elections could redistribute the scales.
What I would like to see, obviously, something new, something different. A new balance in the parliament, because for now is too on the left. So I would like to see this balance moving to the right, and I think this is possible, because if I look at the polls all over Europe, more or less I can see always the same scenario. The center-right movements are going forward.
Former Belgian Prime Minister and outgoing MEP Guy Verhofstadt believes results at the ballot box could determine more than just the Parliament's political makeup.
No, I think it will be an existential fight against those who want less Europe, and then those political forces who understand that in the world of tomorrow you need a far more integrated European Union to defend the interests of the Europeans in this new brutal world of tomorrow.
EU elections will take place next month.
Europe Day was celebrated in Kiev by the President of the European Parliament. In her speech at the International Summit for Cities and Regions, Roberta Metsola spoke about her promise to make Ukraine a full-fledged member of the EU.
The European Union and the European Parliament stand ready to help. We will come back from this together, because Ukraine is Europe and Europe is Ukraine. And that is our partnership for victory. Slava Ukraini.
More than 250 representatives from Ukrainian and foreign communities participated in the summit with the goal of guaranteeing peace and security.
Кожен з вас бачить, що Путін прийшов на нашу землю так само, як Гітлер йшов на землі інших народів. Злочинно, неспровоковано і абсолютно потворно. На жаль, так само це може статись і з нашими народами. Тому наша з вами взаємодопомога – це робота, щоб не тільки один цей агресор програв, а щоб саме ідея будь-якої війни у Європі знов була розбита.
Happy to see you.
Раді бачити вас. Дуже вам дякую.
Hola, buenos días, soy Tani García, vivo del sector primario y si fuera europarlamentario quitaría la mitad o más de las corbatas que tenemos o que estamos manteniendo.
Bonjour, Gilles Maintré, je conduis la liste Le Centre pour les élections européennes, qui est une liste qui est pro-européenne mais qui vaut une autre Europe dans laquelle les territoires et les citoyens soient au cœur de la décision. Et la première mesure que nous proposerons quand nous serons élus, c'est que les députés européens en France soient élus par département. Il y a 101 départements français, il y a 81 députés européens et donc il y aura un député par département ou couple de départements, ce sera le député européen de proximité, c'est lui que pourront aller voir l'agriculteur, le patron de PME, le responsable associatif, l'étudiant, pour poser des questions, pour demander comment accéder à des subventions, pour faire entendre leur voix, pour demander des comptes aussi, et ça changera en profondeur la façon dont l'Europe est organisée.
No surprises, Chad's interim president, General Mohamed Idris Déby Itno, has been declared winner of the country's presidential poll. He secured an overwhelming 61% of the vote, far ahead of his nearest rival, Prime Minister Succès Masra, who got 18%. Déby Itno seized power 3 years ago, after his father, who spent 3 decades in power, was killed apparently on the battlefield fighting rebels. As gunfire erupted in the capital, Masra has contested the results, which were announced more than 10 days early.